Wonder Woman. Wednesday.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 3 of the Wonder Woman Wednesdays podcast. I'm your host, Stan the Man. I'm here to talk classic Wonder Woman featuring the incomparable Lynda Carter. I ask the help every month of a Wonder Woman cosplayer to help me break down an episode of the TV series and talk a little bit about cosplay. My guest this month is Heather Dubay. I thought I was meeting her for the first time when we did this interview, but it turns out we had met before, and since doing this recording a few months ago, we saw each other again at South Carolina Comic-Con. If you follow this podcast, you've already seen her, or at least heard her, in our SC Comic-Con minisode. She spoke a little bit about her gorgeous cosplay, which was a Renaissance-inspired Wonder Woman, and now that we have her on the podcast, you're going to hear more in depth about the inspiring work that she does with Your Friendly Neighborhood Superheroes, a group in upstate South Carolina. But first, let's talk some classic Lynda Carter on Wonder Woman Wednesdays. A dynamic Nazi spy plots to kidnap Wonder Woman and spirit her away to Germany to use her powers to benefit the Third Reich. The great Lynda Day George guest stars as Fausta, the Nazi Wonder Woman. Quite exciting. All right, I'm talking to Heather Dubay. Heather, how's it going, eh?
It is wonderful. I'm having a great day. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. We're going to talk a lot about cosplay and the kinds of things you do, but why don't you just give a sort of a brief introduction of yourself?
Okay. My name is Heather Dubay. We live in South Carolina, and we are part of a local cosplay costumed group called Your Friendly Neighborhood Superheroes. And we do various volunteer work with charities and fundraisers, local hospitals, rehabs, things like that.
That is so cool. Awesome. And you watched today's episode, Fausta, the Nazi Wonder Woman. Did you watch that recently?
I did. I watched it again today to rehash it. I've watched it a little bit.
Awesome. So this episode first came out April 28th, 1976. And what I didn't realize until I started looking into this was that so the pilot came out in November of 75.
Right.
And so they did their 2-hour pilot. And then the next 2 episodes didn't come out until April of the next year.
Yeah, that's a long time to wait.
Yeah, there was a big gap there. And I'm not exactly sure. I know that, the network, they try out the pilot, and if they like it, they give you some money to start. But it sounds like they just got basically, the okay to do 2 episodes. And then we'll see how those go, right? And then the subsequent episodes started in the autumn of the following TV season,
right?
So the episode that came before this and this episode, that's all we got for that first season of Wonder Woman. Not very much, man. Leave them wanting more, right?
Well, that's what they say.
So the first thing that happens in the episode, obviously, it's the credits, and we see that Bruce Shelley and David Ketchum are the writers. Now, apparently, that is a writing team. It looked like they did a lot of writing together. They wrote Love Boat episodes and Fantasy Island, Love American Style. What caught my eye, though, and I will tell you, Heather, I'm a big MASH fan. And anytime somebody from MASH comes up, I kind of notice and make a big deal out of it. So they wrote a very popular MASH episode for. Are you a MASH fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I'm familiar with it. Like, I was young when it was on, and my dad watched it.
So you may not recognize this episode, but the episode is Tuttle, and it's a popular episode because it's from the early seasons. Early on when they had Trapper John and Colonel Henry Blake, sort of the old classic cast, and it's just a very funny episode about a soldier that doesn't exist. And so they wrote that, and they also and they wrote this episode, and the director, Barry Crane, directed this episode and the one right before it. And he also directed a lot of Mission Impossible, Love Boat, Trapper John, MD. So that's who we got in charge here. And I think they delivered a pretty great episode. So the first scene, interestingly, it doesn't take place with Diana and Steve, which is kind of where you'd think. I think a lot of the episodes after this kind of start that way.
Right.
But this starts at a secret Nazi headquarters,
Yes.
right? In
somewhere
Germany.
In Nazi territory.
Somewhere in Nazi territory. If they're in Nazi territory, why does it have to be secret? I guess is what
right.
So, and it's Colonel Kesselman's office.
Yes.
And we immediately get an idea of what his ambition is. He wants to be the assistant to a general. He wants to move up. He's talking to his assistant. And they're waiting for an assistant officer to show up. And he's like, I don't care who this person is. I'm not, I don't care. And when she shows up, it's a woman. It's Fausta Grebels, who is like an Olympic athlete. And this assistant that's with the colonel kind of fawns on her a little bit. He's like, I'm a big fan of yours. Right. And we see that the colonel is not impressed with her.
No.
Especially because she's a woman. And this goes through the whole episode, right?
Whole thing.
He's just like, a woman. He doesn't think much of I guess what he would call the fairer sex.
Right.
So she brings in a film of Wonder Woman, which is basically just shots from the pilot.
Right.
And she's jumping over the car and foiling a bank robbery.
Picking it up
and so she says, we're gonna kidnap this woman because she's awesome, and we're gonna get her to work for our side. We're gonna use her powers for the Third Reich. And she tells the colonel in no uncertain terms that his job is to just help her get Wonder Woman and get her there, and that's all he has to do. And he's not pleased.
No, he is not pleased, and he pretty much treats her that way through the whole thing, like dismisses her stuff and anything she says. And even if you notice his assistant, like she asks him to go turn off the light, and then the assistant looks back at Kesselman and is like, can I turn off the light? Like, is that okay? So he's diminishing her the moment she walks in.
Yeah. And she's not having any of it either, which is great.
Right.
So these people we're talking about. So the Colonel Kesselman is played by Bo Brundon, sorry. And I guess he looks like he's a Swedish actor, and the some of the early credits he has and most of the later credits he has are Swedish movies. Like I think he tried Hollywood for a while in the 70s and just moved back to Sweden or something. Right. Because he did a lot of the typical stuff. Bionic Woman. He did a Manimal episode, which is very interesting. And but a lot of it was Swedish stuff. And his assistant is Colby Chester, who's apparently is a soap actor. He was Kurt Randall in Days of Our Lives. If you know, I followed Days of Our Lives for a while, but I don't remember a Kurt Randall.
Yeah, I don't.
And Michael Crawford on Young and the Restless. So those were his two big. What's that?
I recognize Michael Crawford as a name, but I don't. Like, I had a roommate that watched Days of Our Lives.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while.
And of course, Fausta is played by Lynda Day George, who's an amazing actress, and she did most of her early work on Mission Impossible. She did a lot of TV movies and a lot of theatrical movies through the 70s. She did Ants, which was a TV movie. She did the miniseries Roots, which I saw, and I didn't remember her being in that, but apparently she was. And of course, she did Love Boat and Fantasy Island, like a lot of people did. And she did a couple of horror movies, Mortuary and Pieces. Pieces is actually a movie that I like. It's a crazy 80s horror movie. And what's interesting about her credits is that I was going to mention this later, but I guess I'll mention it now. One of her co-stars in this episode is Christopher George, her husband. And she did a lot of TV and movies with him. Like a lot of her credits on here, he was also there.
Oh, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they had a wonderful relationship. I guess he unfortunately passed away in the 80s, and she tried to continue acting, but she just didn't care for it without him.
Oh, I
So
can see that if you were doing something that you love with somebody that you love and then they're not there, it would be a hard reminder, I think.
yeah, yeah,
It
but
would be hard.
it made for a wonderful career throughout the 70s anyway. It was great to see them in movies together. So we go back to Washington, and now we get Diana and Steve, their first scene, and it starts with her kind of looking through the window at him before she comes in,
Right.
which is interesting because they do these little things to establish that there's a strong bond there, and
Right.
there's maybe a romance that's going to start happening.
Right.
I mean, we know from the benefit of looking back that
Right.
that doesn't actually, unfortunately, go anywhere because of the way they had to change the series. But at least it's nice to see at the beginning,
Right.
the relationship growing. And so she gives him a little gaze through the window, and then she goes in, and basically it's, they're just ending the day. She says goodnight. He thanks her for all her work and everything, and that's really nice. They show her leave, and a car pulls up,
Yep.
and it's Fausta.
She's coming out and she's all in disguise.
I know she has a not so convincing disguise.
Right. She's taking
As,
off her hat in the back seat of the car and she's
yeah.
swapping. She's getting it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I wrote down that she was a dowdy cleaning lady.
Yes, they tried to make her look dowdy. And she
Yeah,
was, I
which
mean, she couldn't really.
no, no, no. So she comes in, and they have a little scene together where she tries to get close to him, and he keeps kind of putting her off, and then finally she just very clumsily like breaks this glass canister of gas or
Right.
something on his desk. It was just really clumsy. It was very
It was
funny.
really bad. Like, first he says, "No, I'm sorry, you can't empty my trash can. These are all top secret documents. You can't look at them." And then she was like, "Oh," and then smashes the thing, and he's like, "What?"
And then he starts coughing, and he's out,
Right.
and that's it. So much for our hero Steve. And she puts on her little gas mask, and then she goes, she briefly, they show her taking him outside,
Right.
and they show her assistants, and this is where I get excited about MASH again, because both of these guys are from MASH episodes.
Right.
There's the older guy named Mueller.
Mhm.
His name is Keen Curtis, and he played Colonel Wortman in the Iron Guts Kelly episode of
Okay.
MASH, and he was also a regular on Cheers. And the other fellow, who is only credited as Nazi, his name is Bill Fletcher, and he played Vinnie Pratt in an episode called A Smattering of Intelligence, which, if you do follow MASH, that is the first episode where they introduce Colonel Flagg, who comes back periodically, and he's a very funny character. And this guy, Bill Fletcher, also appeared in Ironside, and he was a regular on The Doctors, which I forgot all about, but it's this old soap opera that ran for 40 years. Is it 40 years? No, it's 4,000 episodes. That's why I remembered. 4,000 episodes.
Either
Like
way, that's a lot.
from the 60s to the mid 80s. So he wasn't on there the whole time, though. All right. So the next morning, Diana and Etta Candy, who's got the craziest name in the world, are doing a little scene, and Etta gets to make a little joke because Steve hasn't shown up, and
Right.
they thought maybe he's out all night, and Etta's like, "Oh, where does he get the energy? Oh, that's Steve."
Yeah.
And then Fausta calls with her lovely American accent, and and she she talks about, it's like this weird convoluted thing. Like she talks about finding a note,
Right.
and it's either from Steve or it's about Steve. Like, I think it's from Steve, and she's trying to set up Diana to get this information to Wonder Woman somehow.
Right.
And so she gives the address of where she found the note,
Specific
and
coordinates.
that's right. And so Diana tells Etta Candy that she's going to go donate blood. And it's a little weird here. Like Diana doesn't let on that, that there's Steve might be in trouble,
Right.
which you
Like
kind of think she would.
it would probably be the job of the people he works with to find
Yeah,
that out. I mean,
exactly. So she's like, "Oh no, I'll take this privately, Etta. You can go, and I'm gonna donate blood." She says later, and then she locks up the office and does her slow-mo transformation.
yes.
And this is the old school one where before they changed it to like the big starburst.
Before the pow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had just watched the episode before this, and I swear this is actually the same footage.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think it is.
because I remember thinking when she left that she goes out this weird back door that looks kind of like a bathroom.
Yep.
And it so it all seemed the same. And what's strange is that later in this episode, she
Mhm.
does the transformation in that office again,
Yep.
but then it's a different camera angle. So
So
it
then you're
does
not
look
really
like,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, or maybe they set up multiple cameras for the same transfer. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's the whole transformation shenanigans is weird because they said how expensive it was, but it doesn't look like a really expensive effect. It's just
And
it,
maybe that the expensive effect came later when they added the graphic animation pieces to it and
maybe.
not this original one that just looks like she's like you literally see her holding her dress across her arm
Right.
as she's in the spin.
Yeah, later on, her clothes can magically just disappear
Yeah,
and then
just
come
poof.
back later.
Right.
But now she's got to like put them someplace.
Yeah,
So
no. In the closet.
yes,
So,
in the closet where you would put them. So she does her transformation and takes off. So we're at the warehouse, and Wonder Woman enters. Fausta's back there hiding amongst the
just
boxes.
watching.
Yeah. And so a couple of thugs, come forward to confront her, and we get our first, really fun fight scene,
Right.
which there's a great dummy throw where I guess it's supposed to it's supposed to be the older guy, and you just see this dummy sail into this pile of boxes.
Yeah.
It's great. And so anyway, she lassos him,
Yeah.
and she makes him tell her where Steve is, and he has to, of course, and then he
Right.
kind of runs away, and Fausta's like, "Oh, I'm surrounded by cowards."
Right. What is with these men?
Yeah. So we get commentary from Fausta from the sides, and in the meantime, Wonder Woman goes to the crate where Steve is and just rips the side of it open. It's awesome.
Right.
They give you a nice, crackling special effect
Crackling.
there. And so Steve and I love how, Steve, I don't know how well Lyle Wagner dealt with this because he seems to be a real sport about it.
Yeah.
But as the series went on, you kind of did see him less and less. So I don't know how much he enjoyed it, but he kind of, the roles are reversed here, and it's the
Yeah.
70s, and he's the damsel in distress,
Yeah.
And so, he actually says, my pride's hurt a little bit, but I'm okay.
Yeah. He admits to being embarrassed, which I thought was a really big thing for them to even say in the
Yeah.
episode, that he would be embarrassed by being tricked and then having a woman come to rescue him.
Yeah. Wonder Woman gets Steve out of there,
Right.
and Fausta talks to old Mueller and Mr. Nazi, and they sort of commiserate, and Mueller tells her, that lasso was something. I had to tell her the truth.
Yeah,
So
like I couldn't fight it.
yeah, so it confirms for her that she not only has her own kind of powers, but she has help,
Right.
like the stuff that she uses has power too. And
Right.
so Fausta kind of thinks about it and starts putting together a plan.
Yeah.
So we have a commercial break, and then the next scene is a bond rally at an outdoor park, where they used to always
Right. Yep.
sell these war bonds. And our old Nazi Mueller has been undercover as what was it, Colonel Brown, I think. Colonel Brown is Special Services, so he's actually kind of running this thing. He's got an MC there, and so they've got Fausta dressed as Wonder Woman with a golden mask, so you
Right.
can't
You
like
can't
see
tell
that
who
it's
it is.
not actually Wonder Woman.
Not really. Because that doesn't give it away.
I know. Nobody,
Like
oh look,
Etta
it's
even says something about that. She says, if I had her face, I wouldn't cover it up.
yeah, yeah. It's so funny. Yeah, they're standing. Her and Steve are in the audience, and they're like, "Oh, and by the way, where's Diana? Oh, I don't know. She's giving more blood or something."
She's got lots to give today.
Yeah. So, so Fausta posing as Wonder Woman hits one of those, sort of strongman hammers on a
Right.
the bell sliding bell tower. I don't know what that's called. I meant to look that up so I could, talk about it.
Right.
But whatever that is, you see them at the old carnivals,
Like
right?
carnival game. Hmm.
And so the idea is that however high it goes, that's how much they expect to collect that day. That's how much they encourage people to donate. And then,
Right.
of course, like Fausta predicted, Wonder Woman appears, and she's like,
Right.
"Let me show you how it's done," right? And so she goes and hits the sledgehammer, and
Yep.
boom.
Sky high. The sky's the limit.
Right, right. Very clever of her. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, the thing goes flying, and then Fausta challenges her to lift some barbells.
Right.
And as soon as Diana gets to the barbells, a trapdoor opens.
Right.
And so she disappears, and it is like the clumsiest sort of
Oh,
catch.
it's terrible. Like I'm concerned about Linda Carter's face as this guy is trying to like maneuver her to make it look
Yeah,
like he's like
like yeah, he's putting this
putting the
chloroform on her,
chloroform on her. And
and
she's like,
yeah, and he's simultaneously trying to wrap the lasso around her so he
right,
can like question her. So
right,
she's woozy from a little bit of chloroform, and she's got this lasso very clumsily wrapped around her, and he's like,
right.
"Okay, where's your strength? How do I defeat you?" And so she tells him, which I I have to confess to you, I don't know the comic books very well. So
Right.
I don't, and I know they changed things for the TV show, and the TV
Yeah.
show is what I know, but it still seems weird that her
Yeah.
power is entirely, what she says is her her strength is connected to her belt.
Her belt. And that's not true within the comic books. And there's multiple versions of like her origin stories, and they've restarted and things multiple times. But like at this point in our run of comic books, like she's a demigoddess. Like she's,
Right,
the goddess of war. So like there's no way that just her belt is going to be this source of power. And
right.
part of that is just being an Amazon.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Like even just by the virtue of being an Amazon, she should be able
right.
to just kick butt.
Yeah,
Right.
right. I mean, that's kind of the nature of who they are.
Yeah. But
So,
I do appreciate from, I guess, from a TV production point of view,
right,
if you weaken her a little bit so that she's got ways that her very human enemies can
right.
get a leg up on her, then it makes it a little bit easier to tell a
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
It's
there's that dynamic of being able to do the pull and push of good and evil, and you can't
yeah,
really do that if she's completely invincible.
right, exactly. And I know it seems like as they go throughout the series, they're looking for ways to save money, and one of those ways is to have, I mean, it seems like all the people she encounters after a while are just very human. In
Right.
fact, I don't know that there are any super powered villains in the series.
No, I don't remember
There's like,
actual super villains in there.
yeah,
She does have a couple episodes with an alien who comes from
oh, that's right.
another planet, but like
Yeah,
he's there to observe and gather knowledge, and they end
right.
up having this, conversation about um, what the Earth is like and stuff. But I don't remember him being like imbued with superpowers, other than I think he may have had like some sort of telekinesis. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Um,
that's I don't know, series three,
so
season
so
three.
yeah. So yeah, so I guess, it's a little weird, but for the TV show, it seems like it makes sense, or at
Right.
least we have to accept it, you know. So,
Well, and at this point in time, like when we first watched it, we don't she wasn't common knowledge. Like
yeah,
people wouldn't have been like, yeah, that's not right.
right, right,
I mean, maybe a handful of people that have been reading her comics since the
exactly.
40s. Like that's just they had to do that for us common folk.
Yes, yes. So it gives us it gives Fausta a good way
Yeah.
to get the better of her. So he finishes chloroforming her, and she's out. And then they drag her to the car, and Fausta, comes out, and so they get her in the car, and then Steve comes up and he's like, "Hey, Wonder Woman," and I forget what he
Right.
asks her, but she's like, "Just drive," she like ignores him, and he's like, "That's not Wonder Woman."
Yeah, he's like, you may look like Wonder Woman, but you sure don't act like her.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would think that you would know it wasn't Wonder Woman.
So and that's part of Fausta's plan, right? So because
Right.
she wants him to, at least I thought so. I got confused about it
Mhm.
because when he does follow her, she's kind of like, oh, he's still coming, like I, I,
Right.
I mean, I guess she wants him to. I guess I
She
don't know what she wants at this point.
she originally wanted to use him as bait
Right.
because Wonder Woman would come if he was in trouble. And then once um
Exactly. Yeah.
and then it flip-flops later, like when they get her and then she
Hmm.
breaks out, but then he comes back, she was like, well, we'll keep him because we'll do what my original plan was.
Right.
She'll
Right.
come and get him and then we'll have both.
Okay. So now Steve is just being an annoyance at this point. She
At
doesn't
this
need him.
Yeah,
Okay.
she doesn't need him at this point because she has what she originally wanted, which was Wonder Woman all along.
Yes, yes. So Steve goes to a cab with Etta, by the way. Etta's
With
still tagging
Etta
along.
in the cab. Why is she in the cab?
I don't know. He tells the cab driver, he's like, I gotta commandeer this, I'm very important, and there's an emergency. And and the cab driver's like, okay, get in. And he's like, oh no, I'm a trained combat driver.
It's a trained combat driver. I'm going to drive it.
And then he proves that he's a
It's not
terrible
a
combat
good
driver.
driver.
So he does horribly, he gets stuck,
Yep.
and he just about loses them, but he hears the plane starting.
Here's the plane.
Yes, so they had driven her to a plane they had hidden, and they took the camouflage off of it. And I think they took like the decals
Took
off.
the United States decal off to tell you it was a Nazi plane.
That's right. So that they
I'm
can be
like,
seen leaving. Yeah.
right, you're in American airspace. Wait.
So and then they take off for the fatherland.
Fatherland.
And they give us this great shot of the plane going over the map, so you
Yep.
can see. And I try not to look at these, but when I looked at the IMDb page, there were like two people who were writing reviews complaining about all the factual errors in Wonder Woman. And I'm like, okay, it's Wonder Woman, guys.
The comic book
Yeah.
story.
But their big complaint was, this little plane would have to refuel several times to get across the Atlantic. But on the
Okay.
other hand, we didn't see it. Maybe it stopped in Greenland. You
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
don't know. We don't know. We just know that that was the direction it went.
That's right. All right, so we go back to General Blankenship's office, and Steve wants to go after Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
Steve's like, I'm going to go into Nazi territory
All
and
by
go after
myself.
Wonder Woman. Yes. And like the general's like, no, you're not.
No.
In fact, why don't you take a rest? Because, you're acting a little crazy.
Yeah.
Just take a break.
Yeah.
Go on take a few days rest, he says.
Which is his answer to everything. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
you noticed, like every time somebody had a little bit of trouble, go take some days off.
That's right.
I mean, where did that come from?
Especially during wartime. He's giving a
Right?
lot of people.
Go take a break.
So Steve instead goes to the radio room, or whatever, message center with Etta
Right.
again. He's
With
got,
Etta.
yeah, which is great. I mean, she's a great character, so I like seeing her.
I like Etta.
But I'm trying to figure. I mean, I think she's the general secretary,
Yes.
and so, but she keeps hanging out with Steve, and going on these little misadventures with him. But that's cool. All right.
I mean, the more the merrier.
Yeah. So they're listening to the radio waves, and somehow the only thing they hear is the exact thing they need to hear.
Right. And she's speaking in English.
I didn't even think about that.
To her German, like, air patrol, like, control tower. Like, I'm gonna tell you exactly when I'm gonna be there and where I'm gonna be for this secret base.
Right.
Just so everybody knows.
Honestly, that's one of the things that made me think she was still trying to lure Steve over there. But but you're right, it makes no sense. She doesn't need Steve anymore. So she's just weirdly speaking in English.
It's for our benefit.
Right. Nobody wants subtitles.
Right.
So Fausta gets there to the secret Nazi headquarters, and again, she's got to argue with Colonel Kesselman. Like every time
she has
together,
Wonder Woman with her.
I know.
I got her.
And the thing is, like, this is supposed to be like, his moment to impress the higher ups. Like,
right.
If Wonder Woman's who they want, then, you've got her. So,
you've got her.
Play ball. But he's still like, we don't need you. We don't need her.
Right.
So anyway, but, so he wants to interrogate her. Fausta wants to interrogate her. And she's like, use this lasso.
Right.
And he's like, that's crazy. And so she puts the lasso on her and she says, I'll prove it to you. And she says, where are you from? And, Wonder Woman says, Paradise Island, where women run everything. And it's awesome. And of course, Kesselman's like,
that's gotta be a dream.
Yeah. Preposterous.
You wouldn't last a week or something like you.
Yeah. So in the meantime, while Fausta's interrogating Wonder Woman, Steve gets to England at the Office of Strategic Services, where somewhere he has in England. Somewhere in England, where he has an old buddy, Charlie Scott. And he's like, hey, Charlie, drop me behind enemy lines, would you? Charlie, sure. I happen to be going there anyway. So yes, absolutely. And Charlie is played by Jeff Cooper, who's looks like just a sort of a jobbing actor. He's got various one-time roles on several shows. He was a regular on Dallas, though. If you watch Dallas, Dr. Simon Elby. Huh. I did not watch Dallas, I'm afraid. I did.
My grandma watched Dallas.
It was popular in its time.
It was.
So his buddy does drop him behind enemy lines. Steve lands somewhere in his little parachute.
Right.
And, they didn't even spring for a shot of him floating down in his parachute. They just show him
shoving him in the stump.
Yes. And so he's immediately met by Rojak, I guess is the way they say it. Rojak. And he's supposed to be with the resistance.
Right.
And he's going to lead Steve to Operation, what is it?
Fraulein.
Operation Fraulein. Yeah.
Fraulein.
And this is Christopher George, who is Lynda Day George's husband.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I guess he got his start on Rat Patrol and then did all those other movies that I talked. He did Love Boat, Fantasy Island, Pieces, the crazy horror movie. And so he sort of, and we immediately know that he's not on the level because they run into two Nazi guards, right?
Right.
And they're like, give me your papers. And so Rojak, gives them these papers and he says, okay, you can go. And then they leave. And the other Nazi guard says, those papers were fake. Like, why did you let him go? And he's like, oh, he's a double agent.
Yeah.
Like, just some random Nazi recognizes him as a double agent.
Right. So. We just know that he's a double agent. But is that necessarily safe? I mean, if you're a double agent, who are you actually giving info to?
Right. So, and it turns out Rojak is just leading Steve in circles. And eventually Steve figures it out. And he's like, what are you trying to do here?
What are you trying to pull?
And so, Rojak just, says, okay, he pulls a gun on him and says, I'm a double agent. And Steve says, well, that's not going to work because somebody's coming up behind you with a shovel to bash your head in. And he's like, oh, that old guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe him.
He doesn't believe it.
But of course it's true.
It's
and
true.
and it's a young, a young woman with the resistance who I guess she says that they suspected he was a double agent.
Right.
So she followed him. And his old pal Charlie told her to do that, and he's like, good old Charlie.
Always running interference.
That's right. Now, I looked up this young lady's credits.
Mm-hmm.
She's credited as Peasant Girl, which I don't think is a very good name for,
That's terrible.
She's like a very reliable,
right.
resistance person. So
right.
I don't know. She at least she deserves a name, I think.
Yeah, a name or leader of.
Yeah, but so her name, the actor's name is Mary Rings, and she has played, sort of sporadic bit parts, from 65 all the way up to 2009. But what was interesting about her IMDb page was that she founded a group called Born to Act Players, which is an LA acting troupe for actors with challenges like Down syndrome and
wow.
autism. And I think I checked out their website. It's still running. She's still doing it. She's also an acting teacher, and I think it was her son that had Down syndrome and was, wanted to act. And so that's the reason she founded it. It's awesome. So she's like an actual Wonder Woman,
That is amazing. I love that.
Yeah. And so, and you can check it out. It's like borntoactplayers.com. So if anyone wants to look at that, I think it's really cool. And I love that she's still doing it. So anyway, she before all that happened, she had this spot on Wonder Woman where she played a resistance fighter called Peasant Girl. and she's going to help Steve because Rojak was no good. So she helps Steve find the Colonel's little secret headquarters. And in the meantime, the Colonel wants to interrogate Wonder Woman. No lasso needed. And so his way is a giant Frankenstein table. And so they strap poor Wonder Woman to this thing and then, creakily sort of put it upright.
But they're not doing anything to her. There's no torture or anything. He's just strapped her in.
The torture is listening to him argue with Lynda Day George.
Oh my gosh, which is pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
and finally, Wonder Woman sees what's going on, right? And she's like, and if she were a different person, I'd say she's thinking strategically. But the thing about Wonder Woman and the way Linda Carter plays her is like, it's just really sincere. Yeah. Like she just tells Fausta, you should not be taking orders from this guy. You're too smart.
Yep.
And, why are you even listening to him? Which just enrages the guy.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Because now there's another woman telling him that he's not right.
Exactly. And so what he does, he's so mad. He's holding the belt and the lasso, and he throws them in anger right at Wonder Woman's hand. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
It's a good thing she can catch.
That's right. She does a great little catch. She doesn't have to move her hand. She just bam. And as soon as she touches the belt, she's got her powers back.
Right. She didn't even need to put the belt on, which is something that I was like, well, that's interesting. She just needed to hold it. Right. So what is it about that she doesn't even have to have it on?
I don't know. That's, I'm interested to see because they go back to Paradise Island. They touch back to, some of the lore and mythology that they're
Mhm.
setting up. So I hope maybe sometime they might explain it more. Like,
Right.
what is it about the belt? Where does it come from?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I'll be honest. I'm recording these out of sequence, and so
Oh, it's hard. Yeah.
I haven't recorded the pilot. And so I haven't watched it in a while, and I don't remember. I know they talk about
Hmm.
the outfit and some of the,
Yeah.
the lasso for sure. I remember they talked about, but I don't remember if they said specifically what it is about the belt that gives
Right.
her powers. So we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll just have to wait and see.
But what we know is she gets a great fight scene here.
Yes.
She she like, as soon as she gets the belt, she's like, those straps are gone. She's off the table,
Yep.
and she's kicking butt.
Yep. We're just chucking people everywhere.
Yeah, and the great thing is, if you love old timey 60s and 70s TV, she gives the old karate
The
chop.
karate chop. Yes,
Yeah.
at the end, she just goes, "Whatcha?"
Yeah.
And it makes a big sound too. It's like it
Yeah,
does a like karate chop sound
right.
instead of it just like when you actually hit somebody in your neck, you
It's
don't hear
just kind
that.
of a dull thud. Yeah.
It's pretty great. And she just looks at him like, "Ah, I'm tired of you," and chops him.
Karate chop. Yes. So she takes care of everybody, including Fausta, and walks out of there.
Right.
And there's a couple of more guards outside that she quickly, takes care of.
Yep.
And then there's a giant door that she just gets to rip open.
Rips it open. Some
Yeah.
of my favorite stuff is when she's just ripping doors up open and pushing things over.
Yes. So once she's gone, Steve shows up to save her.
Of course, it's right
Unfortunately,
after she's gone.
Steve, timing, buddy, timing. And so
Well, he led
he
around in circles for a while, so
that's right. That's right. Christopher George got him. So he gets in there. He waits for some guards to run by because they're going to go look for Wonder Woman, which he doesn't know. And so then he gets inside, pulls a gun on Fausta and Kesselman, who are just, getting, waking back up out of
Right.
after being knocked out. And Fausta tells him, "Hey man, you're too late. Wonder Woman has escaped."
She's gone. It is
Yeah.
true.
And then immediately Christopher George comes through the door with a big bandage on his head. That darn shovel.
That shovel was bad.
And so he's like, "I got you now." And so they're gonna throw Steve in the dungeon, and Foster's like, "This can still work. We'll get Wonder Woman back because we got Steve." So, and Wonder Woman goes to she finds a plane somewhere.
I think it's the same plane that brought her to the
You're right.
plane.
I think it is. They just parked it outside.
They just park it outside.
And
there was one guy guarding it, and so
right.
she
And
was
he's
like,
got
"I'm gonna lasso him and pull him away." And
I know. She just gives him a yank and he rolls down the hill.
he
It's too
rolls
bad.
back all the way down the hill.
He had a nice little campfire going there. I
Right?
thought he was gonna roast some marshmallows, and no, Wonder Woman comes and she gets up on the plane after she gets rid of the guard, and she's like very pleased with herself.
Oh yeah,
She's
it's like she looks around and she's like, okay.
Yeah. And now I'm gonna fly back. And she doesn't know that poor Steve is there.
No.
So she gets to Washington, and as Diana, she talks to Etta, and Etta's of course nervous because Steve's missing and she knows where he went.
Right.
And so the general comes in and he's like, "I can't believe this communique." And then he spills this
All the
top secret information. And I guess we have to assume that both Diana and Etta are completely security cleared, because he really just he'll just talk, he'll say anything in front of them, apparently. And then when he says, so Steve is behind enemy lines, and Diana says, "Etta, you better tell us."
Yeah.
Like, if I were the general, I'd be, "Us? What? You're his secretary. Do you really need to know?" But you can't not trust Diana.
Right.
I think she's earned the general's trust by now.
I think so.
Yes. So Etta does tell them, he's not on furlough. He went looking for Wonder Woman, and the general's like, "Well, I hope Wonder Woman knows that he went because
because we can't get him. We said no, and he went anyway.
and Diana says, I'm really worried. And the general, like you said, the general's like, take some time off.
Take some time off. We shouldn't organize some sort of search party or like
no, just take some time off. Have a vacation.
Have a vacation. Go to a resort.
So we get back to Fausta and Kesselman, and guess what they're doing?
They're arguing.
They're arguing again. And they're trying to figure out, what to do with Wonder Woman once they get her back.
Right.
Because, Fausta's like, we could use her powers, and the general's like, we're gonna kill her because I don't want to use her powers, and we don't want America to have her powers, so let's just get rid of her.
Nobody can have her. I'm gonna take my ball and go home.
He's such a guy. Like
like
if I can't have her, nobody can have her.
Stereotypical, like rotten
Yes.
kind of guy. Like
yes.
He hasn't grown out of that 5th grade, like girls are terrible phase.
Yeah, he's petulant. That's what he is. Petulant Kesselman.
I think that's a great way of calling him. I like that a lot.
So Steve is locked in some kind of dungeon. Oh, and by the way, so that while they're arguing, while Fausta and Kesselman are arguing, they just look out the window, and here comes Wonder Woman over the wall.
Right. So it's really interesting. As a kid, I never noticed the stunt doubles. Like I just didn't pay attention to it. But this one is so interesting because you can actually see where it's one take. And so she zip up on the thing, and then you see the body come down, and then she walks out like almost immediately after the one jumps down. And my daughter was like, that's perfect placement.
Yeah, that was a really great shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that shot. That was awesome. Yeah, the stunt double's way up on the wall, jumps down behind all this junk, and then Diana or Wonder Woman, Lynda Carter, walks out. Right. That's so great.
Oh. And then just watch her. Yeah. Come on in.
So
secret base.
Yeah, I guess she doesn't care about, like coming in stealthily. She's just like, I'm walking in and getting Steve. That's it. Yeah. I don't care who sees me. Yeah. So yeah, he's in a dungeon, and she comes in and starts, pulling on his chains. And I'm always afraid when stuff like this happens in these, I'm always afraid that she's going to break his wrists, because she's super strong, and she's just tugging on these like shackles, and he's got just a very human wrist in there. Yeah. And I'm afraid, please be careful. Right. But she loves him, so she'll be careful.
He's fine.
He's going to be fine. So, and then he says this line that I just loved it, and I loved his delivery. He says, Wonder Woman, I want to thank you for all you've done for me in this lifetime, because like
what does that mean?
Well, he knows he thinks he's about to die, because as she's taking off the shackles, they start the hydraulic, the old
the wall coming in.
The walls are coming in on him, so they're going to crush them. Fausta and Kesselman's followed them down to the dungeon. That's exactly where they want them, and Kesselman's like, now I've got you, and he's got this contraption that I don't know what it would be used for other than smashing people. I mean, that's kind of a weird hobby to have, just smashing people. It's it tells us something about Kesselman.
Yes.
Aside from being petulant, he's also psychotic. A little
twisted. Yeah. A little twisted.
So yeah, Steve's afraid he's going to die. So like maybe in the next lifetime we'll do better.
Right.
But and so then, and God bless him, God bless Steve. He's trying. They're stopping the walls. Wonder Woman's stopping the walls, and he's right there with her,
pushing. I'm just gonna keep pushing
on that wall.
She's gonna need help.
I think he's given about, he's doing maybe 2% of the job,
right,
or less, but he's doing it. He's there. Yeah. So I think that's just awesome. And so they, Wonder Woman, stop the walls, and they stop them so hard that the machine,
everything's blowing up.
Everything blows up. It's like the when the vehicle goes over the cliff, it just explodes. So and then then Fausta and Kesselman hightail it out of there,
Right.
and Wonder Woman and Steve kind of go after them, but they go in the wrong direction.
Right.
And I guess they're following Christopher George, because Christopher George is like standing behind a doorway. And
Right.
when they get to him, he closes the door, and then they fall through another trap door.
Right. So Fausta sets that up saying like they were arguing as she was pushing the door and said that we're going to use the trap door this
Oh,
time.
okay. Okay.
And so she kind of set it up that she had a different plan that they were going to use the trap door and catch them that way. So I think
Right.
the ruse is that Christopher George goes that way so that he can lead them over the trap door.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I have such trouble following Fausta's ingenious plan here.
Yes, it's difficult.
And uh the colonel's just, he wants to change the plan at every turn. So you never know what's going to happen.
It can never be anybody else's idea.
That's right.
Like it's that person that you're in school with and you're doing the group project and they just want to be contrary to everything that anybody else comes up with.
Yeah.
And he just does it the whole time. They fall through the trapdoor and they're in the water pit, which has some sort of element
Yeah.
that
It's
has
like
electricity that you can lower
right.
down.
It's like they've got wires or something hanging above the
Yeah.
water. So you can't get past it, or
Right.
maybe if somebody pulls a lever, it'll go into the water and
Right.
shock you. I don't know. But it's like it's an electric
Current.
uh
Yeah. She says something about 50,000 volts.
yeah, yeah. So they're in the water. Her
Mhm.
and Kesselman are up there still arguing.
Still
And 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 Kesselman says something to Wonder Woman, and she's like, I'm not talking to you. I will only talk to Fausta, the woman who captured me.
captured me. Yeah. And
And
he was like, no, she didn't capture you. You're my prisoner.
yeah,
Oh
it
my
just
gosh.
it sends him over the edge. And so he's like, I'm throwing in Fausta too. I'm just gonna throw her in. So he tells Christopher George, just throw her in. Like
Right.
he's had it. He's had it with these women. And then Wonder Woman's like, do you see, Fausta? Do you see how much they
Yeah.
care about you? Who
Right.
the
Do you
real
see who
enemy
the
is?
real enemy is? Which I think is one of the like a big deal to point out that, you're working for the wrong people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I don't really know how to express it, but it's so, especially for its time, 1976. The story, is apparently about Nazis and Americans, but it's
Right.
it's really about telling this woman that she is in a crazy relationship with
Yeah.
somebody that's destroying her, and she needs to get out of it. She
Yeah.
has the power to do that.
Yeah.
She's too good for this crazy person. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like another story going on there, And so I think it's a beautiful sort of undercurrent to
Mhm.
what kind of looks like a very comic booky thing,
Right.
but I think the sincerity of the writing and the sincerity of Lynda Carter and
Mhm.
Lynda Day George,
Yep.
who I think is a wonderful actor. They're really delivering this second layer of stuff that's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah. Like pay attention. Do you see what's happening? Like you're obviously being undermined every time you speak. Like they don't value you. And you have
Exactly.
so much more to offer than what you're being credited for or even listened to. I mean, I think most women can relate to being in a situation where they haven't been listened to just because they're female.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, like that's real for a lot of women.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that it's really great that they put it right out there. And they did it kind of in this way that it was lighthearted enough that you could accept what was happening and then go, oh, but wait a minute.
Right.
That's real stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So when so the last straw is trying to throw Fausta in there,
Right.
and Faust is like, this isn't gonna happen. And so So she throws Christopher George into the water. And then she throws a rope to Wonder Woman,
Right.
and Wonder Woman starts climbing up, and then Fausta starts fighting Kesselman,
Yeah.
which is great. I'm like, yes, go,
Like
finally.
she needed to hit him a long time ago.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm almost sorry that when Wonder Woman gets up there, she finishes the job. I'm like, she
Right.
should have just let
Just
her beat
just
the
let it
crap
happen.
out of him.
Let it happen. Now, not that I want people to solve it with violence, but like he just
Right,
needed
right.
to be shut up.
Yes. And so Wonder Woman gets up there and grabs Kesselman and throws him in the water. And
Throws
then
him in the water.
Steve climbs out. And Faust is like, you guys can go. I've got the voltage set. They're not going anywhere.
Right.
And so they all go outside, and they go outside, and they're like, come to America with us.
Yeah.
And you've saved us, and you kind of you see how things are, so come and live free in
Right.
America. And she's like, I love my country, I'm not going to leave. And which I think is wonderful.
Well, there's a really beautiful conversation point where Wonder Woman is saying that you have shown other women how to be free. Like you've shown them that they can get out of this. And then Fausta says, you showed me the way. Now I need to show others. And I
Yeah,
thought like that's right there is that point of like, you've inspired me to change the world. And now I can go do my part here in my house, in my homeland, and you can go to your home and you can do it there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was pretty great. I wrote that down. I was like now I can show other people how to be free, which is huge.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love the way that scene ends.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, the uh, there's such a balance that they're constantly walking between sincerity. And in the pilot it was more campy. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily campy right now, but more, I guess, comic booky.
Right.
There's like heightened violence and heightened characters, and
Yeah.
so it's almost hard to take seriously, except that Lynda Carter is always so sincere.
Yeah. Always.
And the acting in this last scene, I think, is really nice, like on
Yeah.
everybody's part.
Yeah.
And even when they bring peasant girl in, because
Right.
Steve says, well, you can join the resistance, and then
Right.
the peasant girl tells her, come this way, let's
And
go.
she can give you everything you need to do this. So
Yeah,
now you're going to join us and we're going to equip you to go and show
yeah,
other people how to be free, which is like, that's inspiring.
yeah,
Here, there's all you have support. You don't have to do it by yourself.
yeah. So then they have an epilogue scene back in the States. There's
Right.
a couple of jokes they have with Etta, and then she leaves. And then Steve and Diana are talking about they've already got reports that Fausta's doing great work for them.
Right.
And the last line, what Diana says, um, maybe all women can do wonders if put to the test.
Put to the test.
And Steve says, I think Wonder Woman said that.
Huh.
And then Diana just smiles, and that's the end.
Yeah. No sparkly tooth wink though. Like they
No,
do that later.
that's later. That's later on. It's just a regular smile.
She just smiles.
Yeah. So, and that's the episode. And I just thought, and part of it is they had a great guest cast.
Yep.
And as goofy as he was, Kesselman was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If not completely believable, because he was just so off the wall.
Over the top.
Yeah.
Just like over the top, high pitched, like I want to have this Napoleon complex kind of thing going on.
Yeah. But I just love Lynda Day George.
Oh, she was great.
And I almost wish they would have brought her back, because her and Lynda Carter, I think, just
That would
kind
have
of,
been neat. Yeah.
yeah, they
That would have
just
been neat
light
if
up
they
this.
could have pulled her in a further episode talking about, the work she was doing and Like she
Yeah,
needed Wonder Woman's help or something. That would have been neat.
right. And as far as I know, um, I think these first two episodes, the one before this was Baroness von Gunther, I think,
Hmm.
and Fausta are both from the comic book.
I
Um,
do recognize the names. Yeah.
but I think they're the only two villains that they wind up using from the comics.
Yeah.
Um, so so overall, I mean, I think we kind of talked about um, the your general impressions of the episode. But did you? I mean, were there other things that struck you about it?
There were a couple things like I got um I got a little bit irritated that Wonder Woman got duped so easily. Like um the first time, being tricked into getting it because Steve is in danger. I get she wants to protect him. She has this bond there. But the second one with the competition felt kind of petty.
Yeah,
And I was like, I really don't feel like Wonder Woman would feel petty. Like she would
right,
need to be competitive with another woman. That's not her character at all.
right, right.
So that one, that kind of was like,
Yeah, Fausta
I wish
says
they
that.
would
She
just,
says, "I'm going to appeal to her sense of competitiveness,"
yeah,
and I, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, competitiveness.
yeah, that's not,
That's you, not Wonder
that,
Woman.
yeah, that's not Wonder Woman. Like you're the Olympian. So
But
that was part of me was like, I don't really feel like that fits Wonder Woman's character,
mm,
but they had to figure out a way to trap her.
yeah,
So like, they kind of go off the rails a little bit there, I think.
yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I yeah, I loved it all around.
Yeah,
I just really I think it's a terrific episode.
yeah. I enjoyed it a lot.
Hey, just a brief interruption. I hope you're enjoying the discussion so far. As Heather and I get into talking about cosplay, I just want to point out that the banner picture that's on the website, WonderWomanWednesdays.com, it's also I think it's on the Facebook page as well. It's a montage of several Wonder Woman cosplayers. And they're all pictures. They're really selfies that I've taken at SC Comic Con. And I'm actually in all the pictures, but I've cropped myself out of most of them except the middle two. And the middle two are my first two cosplay interviews on this podcast. The one in the center top is Katie from the previous episode, and the picture in the center bottom is Heather and me from SC Comic Con. And the part coming up where we start talking about cosplay, I forget that we're doing an audio-only podcast, and I hold up this picture, and I don't give any description of it. I just say, hey, do you remember this? And so I just wanted to explain to you that's what I'm holding up. So here it is, my cosplay discussion with Heather. By the way, I meant to send you this, but I'll just show it to you old school. Is that you?
That is me.
Okay, so we've met before.
We've met.
This is
SC Comic Con.
SC Comic Con 2019.
Yes.
I believe. I was looking at my old Instagram photos, and there you are. So
Yeah.
so
That was my first big con.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that was my second time being there. But like SC Comic Con was my first bigger con.
Yeah. And for people who aren't local, that's South Carolina Comic Con in Greenville. Very exciting. Yeah, that was I was just trying to get as many selfies with any Wonder Woman I could see because I'm a fan. And there you are. You're one of them.
That's funny.
What do you call, by the way, what do you call that style of costume? Is that it's like it's
that
based
one's the
on
Bombshell.
The Bombshell. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's based on the Bombshell DC series. So they have some Bombshell girls, and that's the version that Wonder Woman wears in that series.
Cool. Very cool. All right. So yeah, tell me about, well, before we get to cosplay specifically, I'm just wondering, Um, did you watch the show as a kid? I mean, how did
Oh.
you first see Lynda Carter, and how did it did affect you?
Um, I cannot remember the first time I saw Wonder Woman. I was that young. Like, so I was born in the early 70s. And so I don't know of a time that I didn't know who Wonder Woman was.
Uh,
And in my head, it's always been Lynda Carter. Like, I didn't even know who she had a name that wasn't Wonder Woman. Like,
uh,
she was Wonder Woman. She was on the Muppets, and I was like,
yeah.
Wonder Woman's on the Muppets. It's still one of my favorite episodes of the Muppets. Like,
Yes.
because Lynda Carter was on it. Like, she sang Flash Bang Alakazam. Like, I don't even know the name of the song. um, and Piggy dressed up like Wonder Woman. Like, yeah. So I can't remember like the first time. I do distinctly remember when I was in kindergarten. We moved from, my dad was in the service, and he was active up until I was in kindergarten. He was injured, and we moved to Michigan, which is where both of my parents were from. And so the first few months that we were in Michigan, we lived with my grandparents while we were looking for a house. And I had my mom's siblings were my aunt and uncle, which were like 5 and 7 years older than me. So, and then I had younger siblings, but they were closer to my age, and I wanted to be with them. And so I don't know if my aunt had Wonder Woman on or if I had Wonder Woman on, but I distinctly remember, like, we knew I loved Wonder Woman. I ran around in Underoos. I was like ching, 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 ching all the time. I do remember being Wonder Woman with, those terrible costumes with the plastic
With the
faces.
plastic. Yeah, yeah, the
Oh,
plastic.
like, yeah, it was terrible. Like, you couldn't see a thing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I can't, I've always loved Wonder Woman.
So
Like,
you've always sort of had that, that Wonder Woman icon in your mind as a powerful woman.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And one of the things that I love most, and I think it's because of how Lynda Carter portrayed her, was that she was this um, strong, amazing, capable woman, but she still had that softness of being feminine and beautiful, and her compassion showed through, and she
Yeah.
was led by her heart. And it, like, she doesn't have this terrible, tragic backstory. Like, she has a mom who loves her
Yeah.
and wants her to succeed, and they want to protect people. And um, she's always been just very like, I want to say strong, but like, she encompassed so much more than just strength.
Mhm.
Like, she was so well rounded as an individual. How they played her
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah, so I remember running around in the streets. We played superheroes and all of that. So, like, the Hulk and $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, like, all of that stuff is part of like what I remember as playing as kids.
Right.
So,
And
uh,
so when did you so how did cosplaying Wonder Woman come about?
so I didn't really know what cosplay was.
Mm.
Um, when we moved from Georgia to South Carolina in 2013, and I homeschooled my kids. So we went to the library a lot, and I became friends with one of the librarians, and she was doing programming for my kids, and my kids are artistic, uh, theater kids. We and we didn't really know that they were theater kids yet. Um, and the library here in Anderson they were putting together a small con called Electric City Comic Con.
Mm.
And when my librarian friend had told me, I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna dress up like Wonder Woman. And like, I had no concept of cosplay. And so this librarian, who is also artsy, was kind of fostering a love of art and creating things with my kids. And she started telling me about Warbla and all these things. And I was like, I don't know anything about this, but that's really cool. And I want to do it. So, like, I grew out my hair and I like thrifted some pieces
Mhm.
and basically built an upcycled. Like now I know it's called upcycling. So you take a
Mhm.
thrifted piece and you change it into what you want, right?
Right, right.
I had no concept of sewing. I did not know how to sew. I was pretty good with a hot glue gun and some paint. So I like had this old corset and then this skirt, and I took the skirt and I painted all the pieces, and I painted the corset to the point where the satin was very leathery.
Mhm.
So it took
Okay.
on that look. And I did my first foray in figuring out what Worbla was, which was harder to work with than I expected, but not terrible. Um,
Explain to me what that is.
so Worbla is a thermoplastic.
Oh,
And
okay.
so you can melt it and or heat it up, and then you can mold it to whatever shape. And then when it cools, it'll hold that shape.
Mhm.
So I made
Gotcha,
like the
gotcha.
chest plate and the bracers and the tiara out of this Worbla stuff. And I didn't know anything about how to take care of it or prep it, which is important if you want it to look like metal
Hmm.
and not
Yeah.
like, plastic. But I didn't know. So, and I was thrilled. Like I was just so excited that I could be Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And my son dressed up like Captain America, and he made a shield. Like he found a tutorial. He found a tutorial online, and he built a shield out of a sled. And
Oh,
we were like, okay, so we kind of liked this,
yeah.
but we don't know how to do it. And then the next year, I started following who's one of my really best friends now. Her name is Sybil Todd, and she goes by White Knight Cosplay. So I
Okay.
followed her online and started kind of asking her questions. And like
Yeah.
we met at the next year, like at the Electric City Comic Con. Um, and then I found out she directed children's plays at a local theater.
Oh,
And we'd been talking about getting my son into theater. So we, long story short, we became friends. And then for Christmas that year, um, we gave my kids a kit of things on how to do some cosplay and make some robes. And she started giving them sewing lessons.
hmm.
Um, and then our world changed. And it
Uh-huh.
became like, oh my goodness, all these things. And so um, then we built Mandalorians, and then we like, but my Mandalorian is a Wonder Woman Mandalorian.
Oh, wow.
So she's my Wonderlorian. He was Captalorian, and then my daughter is contrary, so she was Jack Sparrow.
What a team. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was weird. But that was like it was such a it was such a challenge to create. Like it pushed us out of our comfort zone of what we knew how to do. We were learning things,
Uh-huh.
and um, we just loved, like, we were doing it together, and that was a really great bonding thing for our family.
Right.
um, and we just kind of it just kind of kept going. um,
Yeah.
and then we joined with Sybil Todd and her family, and we founded Your Friendly Neighborhood Superheroes in 2018.
Cool.
So that's when we kind of.
And what is that? What is the mission of that group?
So our team is focused on bringing hope and joy to people in our local community. Um, we are we are focused on doing more volunteer work. We Before COVID, we were going into hospitals and doing hospital visits. They're not quite really ready for us to be back in hospitals yet,
Hmm.
um, but we do charity events, fundraisers. Our team did some stuff with Make a Wish recently.
Wow.
We would like to get more involved in doing more things that feel like they really matter.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
like we work a lot with the Cancer Association of Anderson,
Hmm.
um, and do some events with them. So
Are there any like it sounds like a lot of cool stuff. Were there any sort of moments like I mean is there a story that sticks out in any of those sort of excursions where
I think the first year, something that made us know that we really wanted to do this is that the first year that we had Your Friendly Neighborhood Superheroes, we did a stocking drive. And we got the whole team together and we cut out stockings and sewed stocking. Like we had this little assembly line of cutting out pieces for the stockings. We put the stockings together, pinned them, sewed them. And then we had local businesses that made donations, and we put like donations boxes out at like the museum and things, and we just like chucked things in these stockings, and we went around the children's hospital and just brought stockings in to these kids. um, there's just nothing like the faces that kids make when they see their heroes in real life. Like the joy, I can't tell you how many little girls run up and crash into me. Like I'm repairing my costume a lot because it breaks because they're like I don't just they're not just like hi all the time. Like some of them just run and just like tackle you.
right.
But I think the hospital visit with the stocking drive was kind of a big deal, and um, it opens the door to a lot of other things. Like last year, we worked with the hot air affair that comes into Williamston every year, and my daughter and I got to take a hot air balloon ride
Wow.
dressed in costume. So
Oh
Wonder
wow.
Woman and Miss Marvel got to go up in a balloon. Um, and it was amazing because my daughter's afraid of heights. Like, I didn't think she would do it. Like, I thought we would get in the balloon and she'd be like, nope, we're done.
uh,
And it was so neat to see her. And I think that she felt very like she had this costume on. She was in character. Like when you put your costume on and you're in character, it changes things. It's not just like playing dress up. Like you can see a change in certain people when they put their costume on, that their character kind of becomes who they're wearing, right? And
yeah.
I was just so tickled that she stayed in the balloon. Like I thought for sure she would be like, no, mom, I'm done.
Wow.
So
That is awesome.
those are pretty neat things.
Do you find are there drawbacks to is there something about cosplay where you're like I maybe it's disappointing, maybe it's tiring, is there
Uh,
anything about it that's an unpleasant surprise, I guess?
I don't think that cosplay has an like a negative surprise. I do find that it's hard sometimes to keep the wonder for people. Like we're in costume, but there are times where parents or other people, like you're interacting with this kid and they are like, this is my hero, this is the most amazing thing, and at some point somebody inevitably says like our real names,
Oh,
or
right.
that's not the real hero, or
Yeah.
whatever, and you can see you can see the disappointment, you can see it all fall apart, and I'm
Oh,
like, oh, we're just killing the magic. Like years
yeah.
ago, my husband had a conversation over Christmas uh, things with my son, and we talked about we need to be keepers of the wonder now. Like
Mhm.
you are now responsible for helping pass magic. And I feel like this is something that we try really hard as our specific team to
Mhm.
maintain the magic and the wonder, because that's part of bringing the joy and hope, that they know that there's something good out there, and that
Yeah.
people care, and that there are heroes. Now they might not look like Wonder Woman and Superman, but there are heroes out there working for people.
Right.
And I think sometimes when we like downplay that that's not the real person, or we make the mistake and we call it like say hey Heather instead of Wonder Woman, like
Mhm.
you lose that magic. And there's nothing worse to me than seeing the magic just fall from a kid's face. Like
Yeah.
that's just heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
It's just heartbreaking.
Wow.
So,
Well, that's so cool. Anything else? Anything else that comes to mind that you wanted to say that, even on a different topic that we haven't talked about?
I don't know. I'm really excited to hear the rest of your podcast. I love the idea that you're going through all the Wonder Woman episodes. Um, it just kind of thrills me.
Well, cool. I hope it turns out. Well,
I do too. I
we're
think
gonna
it'll
have
be
to see.
great.
And hopefully, I don't know if it's the kind of thing where there's like 60 episodes, and I don't know if I'll get like 60 cosplayers, 60 different cosplayers, or if I want to, go back, because I love to talk to you again. I think it's been great. So I'm gonna try to figure that out. Like
Okay.
maybe it's like every season I'll bring everybody back. I don't
Okay.
know. There's
Yeah,
three
you
seasons.
might need to recycle us.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if people wanna follow you on social media, how do they do that?
So on Instagram, I am intentionally fit without the I
Okay.
because
All
in the
right.
beginning it didn't fit.
Oh, I see.
And they can find your friendly neighborhood superheroes on Facebook right now.
Well, Heather, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Stan. I've really enjoyed it. This is lots of fun.
Well, there you have it. That's another one in the can. A big thanks to Heather for taking the time to talk with me. You do such wonderful and inspiring work, and I want to thank you all for listening. It means so much to me. If you love classic TV, please check out the other podcasts I listen to. They're so great. Made for TV Mayhem, Eventually Super Train, Bookem Dano, Mashcast, Mash Matters, and if you're a Wonder Woman fan, my friends, you can't do better than Satin Tights, a Wonder Woman podcast. If you are a cosplayer and would like to be a guest on this podcast, I'd love to talk to you. Just go to WonderWomanWednesdays.com. You'll find the email link there. You'll find all our episodes and show notes. Be safe out there, you guys, and please be kind to one another whenever possible. It is always possible.